What is good, everybody, man? Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Coach will be here probably just a second, getting back to the hotel as Alcorn State is on their bye week. So, Coach is out on the road recruiting, man. He got a meet and go a little bit late. He's almost back to the hotel. He'll be here to recap all the games. I wanted to go ahead and get live so I can talk to you guys. Listen, man, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Listen, man, big week. Wednesday morning, guys. Wednesday morning, the new site will officially launch over at Sports Illustrated /Fan Nation. Really excited for that. FCS Football Central. So you'll see a rebranding of not just our social media, but also the Blue Bloods will now become the official podcast of FCS Football Central over on SI.com. We're going to listen. The goal is to be the leading FCS source out in the media space, man. I think we can do it. We're already one of the biggest in terms of covering it and in terms of podcasts and shows, live shows, and all the interviews we do. Coach Fred joining me each week. It's going to be really big, man. I'm really excited to give you guys the content that we have coming on the site. If you've been looking, top 25 explanations, previews, prediction, all that will already be on the site when it goes live. We already have a lot of content back, I guess, posted on that site. It just isn't live yet on Google, man. So make sure to tune in Wednesday morning for that. Pay attention to all the social media. You can find the X and Instagram handle right down there at the _Bluebloods for both of those, and also my social media at Zach McKinnell. And then, of course, Coach Fred, my guy Timothy Rosario, will also be promoting it. We'll also be expanding, adding new people for shows, adding new people on YouTube, adding new people to the website. There's a lot of things moving forward in terms of this platform. So I'm really excited for that. And I want to thank each and every one of y'all for tuning in and helping us really establish that, man. We definitely couldn't have done this without you guys. So today, man, waiting on my guy, Coach Fred, to kind of go over some games. We're going to talk FCS top 25. We're going to talk some of the biggest storylines. We're going to recap the biggest winners and losers from week 6. And there were a lot of games I really want to get into, man. I asked you guys to submit some questions, so I'm going to hit some of these while I wait for Coach Fred. Shout out to my guy, the Rattler Den, man. Appreciate you becoming a member. If you want to be a member, hit the join button on the channel. So he asked about North Carolina, Central, Florida A&M. Central's ranked 9th, FAMU 16th in the coaches poll. Both starting conference play, traditionally not being playoff teams, can either move up any further before the season end if they win out. I think so. I'll say this, though. Same way kind of Jackson has been capped the past 2 years of Prime. I think they capped out around 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly where they were in the coaches poll. I usually use the media poll, which I think Central's 14 and FAMU's about 19 in that poll. We had a conversation in the HBCU nightly chat today about this, and there's a strong possibility that FAMU winning out, they could be probably fringe top 10 if they continue their season, win completely out. And Central's already right there on the fringe. They got a top 25 win over Elon, impressive win over Campbell, already got a win over North Carolina A&T in the CAA. That Howard game is going to be huge for Central, because if you're looking at just the projections, I don't think the South Carolina State win, the Norfolk win, the Delaware State win is going to carry a lot of weight. You're really looking at that Howard win and what is Morgan State going to do in conference play. Those two games are really going to determine how strong their resume is, but I think they have it. I think you're going to see Central probably wind up somewhere. Listen, it's hard to project because there's a lot of moving pieces just looking here at the rankings. I mean, Delaware, North Dakota State, UIW, Sac State, Montana, Holy Cross, William and Mary, Western Carolina are all right there with Central. I think there's a chance that that's a top 15 matchup. I absolutely do. And I think that would be huge for the Celebration Bowl. I want to say there's only been one other time that 2 top 10 teams have faced in the Celebration Bowl. And man, that would be on ABC with the fanfare. I mean, you're looking at FAMU, Central. Both those fan bases are going to travel to Atlanta, especially FAMU, who's been really dying to get to that point, have been one game away for 2 years since joining the SWAC. You go back to the MEAC days, should have been there, was on probation. I think the fan base is going to be hungry to go to Atlanta and see that team in the Celebration Bowl. So I think they both could move up, and I think that could set up a huge Celebration Bowl opportunity. Tyler, man, we're going to talk about that game as soon as Coach Fred gets here. Because listen, Coach Fred picked Elon. I thought Central was going to win that game. I think Central this weekend, I'm going to say this before, without really kind of spoiling what's coming later. Central, to me, had one of the biggest statement wins of the weekend. And it's not not because I was super high on Elon. I think I had Elon around the 20th spot. They fell out of my rankings this week. Central not only won that game, in my opinion, they look like the best team from start to finish. The front seven, which has received probably the most criticism of any positional group for North Carolina Central, shut down an electric run game. Jalen Hampton had arguably his worst game of the season, and it's because Central dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. And then you got that man, number 11. I mean, I'll say this, he's a difference maker. Where I said it in the preview, you never see him reach an emotional high. You never see him get too down on himself. It's always just even keeled right here all the time, no matter what he's doing. He's just going to go make the right play. Another 4+ touchdown performance. You're seeing his passing game start to evolve a little bit more. I think Trey Oliver's starting to open up the playbook a bit more. Man, Central's going to be tough to handle. I think for any SWAC team going to the Celebration Bowl, and definitely any MEAC team this year, barring a huge collapse, kind of like they had against South Carolina State last year, I don't know if anybody is going to beat them this year. I'll be completely honest. When I look at their schedule, I think Campbell and Elon were probably their two biggest tests on the schedule, and I don't see anyone else really. I don't see anyone else really touching him. I'll be honest with you. I think Davius Richard gives them the advantage over anyone. And I talked to someone today about the potential FAMU NCCU matchup in the Celebration Bowl, and I still think FAMU and NCCU are pretty evenly matched in terms of pure talent on the roster. The advantage that I think Central has coming into that hypothetical matchup is I trust Davius Richard in the biggest games to deliver me a consistent and he seems to take his game up a notch in every big game. I haven't necessarily seen Musa do that yet. And so that's what would concern me is, could Musa raise his game to match the level of Davius Richard? We saw Davius Richard raise his game to the next level, go blow for blow with Shador Sanders in last year's Celebration Bowl, took his game up against Elon, took his game up and competed against Haj Malik, against Campbell. I need to see Musa do that same thing. He had a big performance this weekend, 300+ yards against Southern that we're going to talk about later, but I still give Central the advantage just because of that quarterback position, man. They really and truly look legit. And Timothy, with Davius, I'll say this. I take pride in like our All-American teams that we released on the platform. We were the only publication that had Davius Richard as a preseason All-American, and I feel really good about that. I feel really good that we were the only publication to give Davius his credit. I mean, it's hard to argue that he's not top 5 in terms of overall quarterbacks in the FCS. Um, when I'm just thinking ahead, right? I mean, so Timothy, there's a difference in terms of career. He's probably top 3 right now, but you look at the Gronowskis. I think the Montez kid at Fordham's having a ridiculous year right now. Of course, we know about Saluka at Holy Cross, but I would say he's probably top 5 right now, Timothy. But let me get my guy, Coach Fred, in here real quick. Let's see. Coach Fred, what's up, man?
Oh, man, feeling lovely. On the road. The delay was, I get into I don't know if you just heard that. So it's kind of like my house where the fire detector is beeping, and they were going to run a battery up, and they hadn't got here yet. So I was kind of waiting on that so we wouldn't have that beep during the whole show. But, hey, show must go on, right?
Hey, I love it, man. So, man, I was just going through some questions people submitted. So some ones that we just had to do with Davius Richard, his performance, a potential Celebration Bowl matchup, which I know you can't get into because you guys are still in the running. So I didn't want to put that on your plate. But Coach, big weekend for you guys, man. I mean, I told you before the show. Listen, Timothy was hitting me up. You guys had social media going crazy during that Grambling game, man. What was it like this weekend to pull that one out at home?
Man, that was crazy. And thank you to everybody that was pulling for the old purple and gold. And, that one just actually, it just felt right. I don't know if it was because it was homecoming, because it was Grambling, but it actually just felt right. Uh, and at the end of the, it's like, okay, it just feels too right for it not to go our way. And, we get the big catch from the tight end down there, and he shakes the tackle off, and he scores, and it just kind of goes from there. Uh, Huge crowd, inside and out. Just an outstanding environment. But I didn't get to really celebrate, but I'm starting to celebrate now. Had to catch a So I had to be smart about my celebration intake. And so I'm going to do that tonight, but it started today, hence the glasses. And then I'm going to find some steakhouse in Hutchinson, Kansas. And I'm going to drink a couple adult beverages, and I'm going to have a steak. I saved my whole per diem today. I drank Mountain Dew and Sneakers. That's all I ate today. Free coffee from the hotel, peanut butter. So I got my whole per diem to blow on a steak. So the celebration is continuing, but it was a big time win, man. Hats off to our kids, our coaching staff, man, just never stop, fighting, putting things together. And I think that's the hotel. Yes. Hello. But yeah, man, it was just an amazing atmosphere and just a great time. It's open. It's just an amazing. Y'all are getting live footage right here, man. Life on the road as a coach. And here's that key. Thank you, 3-0. So next door. It was just one of those deals, man, of where our kids just kept right, stayed in the fight, man. Had a chance to lay down, they didn't do it. And hats off to our defensive coaches, man. Had a great game plan to try to get that QB, who was as hot as anybody in the country, off his mark. And we did it just enough. And celebration continues.
Man, that was huge. I mean, I want to give one for the freshman defensive back to get that interception in that clutch moment was just, I mean, 3 interceptions on the day against a quarterback who's been playing out of his mind throughout conference play. And then on top of that, too, I mean, someone mentioned in the chat, the tight end, I want to say number 85, what's that, 3 touchdowns in 2 games?
Griffin, yes. He's starting to cook a little bit as well. And it was just one of those things, man, where it just kind of came together. If you're going to put 13 in there, which they've done to try to hold Jarvion, other people have got to raise their game. And, hats off to those kids. They've all taken the challenge. I'm moving rooms as we speak. I guess I didn't have the battery for the deal. So
I'll let you do that, Coach, man. Just hop back in when you get to your room and get set up.
Okay, cool.
But man, we'll let Coach get set up, man. I'll keep the layout the same so we can just hop right back in. But to get back to y'all's questions, man, while we wait for Coach to get back, man, Lawrence put in the chat the playoff committee changing up their selection criteria, including both the coaches poll and the media poll now in terms of picking playoff teams. The committee can use whatever they want. Obviously, you can't force them to use anything in particular, but new selection criteria, I think it puts a lot of pressure on voters to do their due diligence. It puts pressure on coaches voting in the coaches poll to do the same, because if those polls are inaccurate, man, you can keep these kids from having a chance to go play in the playoffs, man. So I think it's big, Lawrence. I think it's good because we've talked on this show repeatedly about there's flaws with both polls, but absolutely the coaches poll, with coaches not watching any games outside of their own, maybe some in their conference, you got to have a more diverse voter set. I think really and truly, even if you wanted to pick some coaches that are really tuned in and combine the 2 polls, I think that might even be more accurate. But I think it's good. It gives the committee more things to look at. More information, man, equals more accurate votes for the most part. So I'm cool with it. I think it was a good move. I'm excited for it. Man, I got Brandon. Appreciate you submitting this. Why NCCU is still at 14? NCCU is at 9, I want to say, in the coaches poll right now. And let me see. Let me pull up the stats per form. I want to say they're 14 in the stats per form poll. So it's hard to say, man. Everybody votes with different criteria, but I think it's more people are skeptical about putting Central too high just because they, outside of that Elon game, there's some people that don't value the Campbell win, and there's people that don't look very highly on the MEAC. So let's see, coach is back, but yeah, I just think it's a strength of schedule argument for them. You look at Winston-Salem State, that A&T game isn't looking very good right now. That win over Norfolk kind of helps, but I think some voters are still skeptical, and we'll see. I have them in my top 10. I had Central at 9. I think that win over Elon, man, solidified them as a top 10 team. Like I just talked about earlier, they came out and dominated from start to finish on the road against a team that just beat William and Mary. I think Central's a top 10 team. Now, like I said earlier, I don't know how easy it's going to be to climb any higher because you got some talented teams above them, but I think the 8 to 12 range is about where Central is as a team, and you can debate a spot or two here and there, but I think that team is an 8 to 12 team in the country right now. Man, Coach, let's talk about that game. There's a lot of questions about that game, Coach. Let's start here. Central 34-23 over Elon, Coach. You weren't a believer in the Eagles on the road in the preview, man. Did Davius, Richard, and those guys make you a believer now?
They handled the game from the previous week, which is what I thought would, catch them into a sleepwalk type situation. But hats off to that coaching staff, to those kids. They didn't come in and get caught from 2 emotional weeks. They came in and handled business. So I'm definitely I'm on the boat. I'm on the boat. They showed that they can do it, and they're just continuing to do it. And my guy, good friend. So before anybody said there was hate, no hate. I have a very good friend on the staff. I actually know Coach Oliver. They're doing an outstanding job, and can't say enough about it.
I was so impressed, Coach, just because we talked, about Elon's rushing attack and how good that rushing attack has been with Jalen Hampton and some of those guys. 82 rushing yards, less than 2 yards per carry. Central's front 7 probably played their best game that I've seen them play in 2 years. And then, of course, you got Davius, 114, 3 touchdowns, 10 yards per carry on the ground. And then efficient through the air, 21 to 35, 171, 1 touchdown. Coach, I was talking before you got on because they were asking about a potential Celebration Bowl matchup. I think right now, due to Davius and how when he's clicking, he's the best quarterback right now in HBCU football, I think, bar none, probably a top 5 in FCS. When that defense plays well, man, they're just a tough team for anyone to match up against.
Yeah, and they showed, like I said, they showed up. The defense showed up this week. They cut the water off to a team that, that's their go-to, the ground game, and they were able to cut that off, which in turn makes them scary if they can put that together week in, week out. I think they become – they were already a favorite because they are the returning guys. My rule. You are the man until somebody beats the man, and they are, those guys. But now it just seems like they're rounding into form, and games that I thought would catch them coming up, those teams are still missing something. And here you go with NC Central starting to click on all cylinders in all 3 phases. Looks kind of tough for the matchups that I thought would kind of come back and be able to get them. But they still, they're still putting it together week after week. And I'm done. I'm on the ship. I'm in.
I think the most shocking stat of the weekend, 8 sacks for North Carolina Central, 0 allowed on the other side as well. So, just pure domination on both sides of the ball. I picked Central coming into this one because I thought Davius was going to be enough, and he was, man. He was a superstar, even getting down early. 10-0 on the road. Things could have got out of hand. And again, I give it all up to Davius, man. When you got a guy that leads your team that never gets too high, never gets too low, and he's like, man, it's just business. We're going to go out here and ball out. Man, that does something for your team. And I think and then on top of that too, Coach, I don't know how you feel. I still don't feel like Trey Oliver gets enough credit in terms of how good of a coach he is. He is starting to establish himself as one of the best coaches in FCS football. When you look at what Central has achieved, let's just say the past 3 years, there's a chance that they with how the backup quarterback looked this year, could they win 2-3 in a row in the MEAC?
Definitely. And I think he's actually ahead of schedule if you asked him in coaching words. I think he's probably a little ahead of schedule team wise, because you got to remember the program that he took over. That wasn't that long ago. And now you're starting to put it together, not only on the field, but you're putting it together, recruiting, in every aspect of the game. And it's like, it's not falling off. You know, you had a top lineman in the country leave your program and you ain't missed a beat. That says a lot about, you know, your program, your recruiting, your staff. I mean, not many people can lose a top NFL prospect, offensive lineman, and still be able to keep going, not to mention the seniors that went out the door, and still be able to, you know, keep going at a high level like they are. So, you know, not just FCS, not just HBCU football. I think coach is not getting enough credit in just football in general for the coaching job that he's doing.
And I'm with you completely. I'll address this because, hey, Vic, I appreciate the donation, but this is going to be an easy one. Central is not going to opt out of the Celebration Bowl. One, I don't believe they can. Right now, the conference champ is contractually obligated to play in the Celebration Bowl. They're going to the Celebration Bowl. Now, it will be interesting if they drop a game. Let's say Howard wins the MEAC and Central's, 9-2, close loss to a Howard team that's going to be pretty good. They're going to get it at large bid. But if NCCU wins the MEAC, you can't opt out. Like, you're contractually obligated to go. If they somehow wind up finishing second with a close loss to somebody and don't win the MEAC, then they're going to go to the playoffs. I'll just leave it like that. But yeah, they're contractually obligated to go.
But the second scenario to that is
go ahead, Coach.
Is we have that crazy tie that they've had the last couple of years, where everybody's technically the champ. How do they face that? You know, that will be the next thing. Like, you know, what do they do there? We've got the MEAC title, but somebody else has a share of the MEAC title as well. So who goes where? We want to go here, y'all go there, you know, that kind of thing. So that'll be interesting if it happens. Not saying it's going to happen, but that would be an interesting fact, you know, to see what happens.
I don't know if it's happened yet. I don't know if Howard's had a ceremony yet. The ultimate pettiness would be Howard to have like the ring ceremony or the banner ceremony against NCCU. That would be amazing. I even though I don't think you would want to do that because Trey Oliver might try to put up 60.
Yeah, you don't need that.
That would be so petty.
Yeah, that would be that would be a fine line. You know, do you really want to add that kind of gas to the fire that's coming in? But you know, they may just be like, "What the heck? Let's do it." You know, that kind of thing.
Coach, the game of the week was the ultimate. I mean, the game of the week might have turned into the game of the year. Let's just be 100% honest. I mean, Coach, we thought this game would be good, but 52-50, Western Carolina finds a way to escape on the road. I mean, Coach, the final, 2 minutes. I mean, it was 42-42. Western Carolina gets a pick six. Then Chattanooga drives down the field, scores with 53 seconds left. Coach has a chance to just tie and go to overtime. They run a pop pass with the running back for a 2-point conversion. Get it. 50-49 without Desmond Reed. Western Carolina walks down the field in 5 plays, 60 yards in 53 seconds. And gets to go ahead 32-yard field goal to escape with the win. Coach, what was your takeaway from this just insane game between the Catamounts and the Mocs?
Man, I said it was going to get out of hand, but I when I said out of hand, I said out of hand for Western Carolina with a runaway, not out of hand, just completely total chaos, back and forth with the score. But you know, again, man, I think Western Carolina has got to be taken serious now. If they weren't before, you know, CG, to be as young as he is, to pull this off, man, that, you know, hats off to that kid, hats off to Coach Bell, his staff, hats off to Chattanooga. They weren't going away. And, you know, I said that it would be a runaway by the fourth quarter, but it was a runaway in both directions. But, you know, this is what it's about, man. this is college football at its best. And, again, you lose a guy that went for over 200 for you, and then you still find a way. I think you got to take these guys serious, man. And they should be in everybody's top 10.
They're not, but well, that's a whole nother
Yeah,
conversation.
I know, but I'm just saying. I know, but I'm saying.
Man.
I don't know what else they got to do.
Carolina. Here's what I am worried about. I will say this: the caveat: if people are voting projecting, Desmond Reed leaves the game with injury. If he's out, that's a huge. I mean, that kid arguably is the best running back in FCS football right now. Coach, in 2 quarters, had 211, 2 touchdowns, and averaged 14 yards per carry.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you do with that?
And that's the thing. I think that's the double edge for Coach Bell, because you got a guy in your trigger puller, and then you got a guy that you can hand it to. So you have to. I mean, you got the best of both worlds. So I don't know. I mean, you give it to him, it's pretty much the average say it's going to be a first down. You don't give it to him, you got a guy back there calling the signals that can make a first down. I just don't know. And then, if you're saying, like you said, the voters saw that and it's like, well, they could be hurt if this kid doesn't come back or whatever. I don't think so. I think now they just go to the other side of the ball as, the game plan and like, okay, if these other guys can do it by committee, then we're good. If not, hey, CG, it's on you. Take us home, brother. And I think he can do that.
I do too. The good thing is, here's the caveat. Furman has a tough game at Sanford this weekend, but Western Carolina has a bye week. So if I'm the coach, Desmond Reed is not taking a step. We're taking him to whatever. Like he is going to. We'll put a bionic knee in that kid. He's playing against Furman. You can't afford him not to. And shout out to Branson Adams, though, backup running back coach, comes in, goes 61, a touchdown, and averages 10 yards per carry in a backup, bro. I mean, this team has so many weapons. What do you do? But I do have to say the defense allowed a lot of points, but they made crucial plays. That pick 6 was huge. 3 sacks. They had a lot of key plays that kind of kept them in this game. Coach, let me pull this up because I want to make sure I get this exact number right. Because we talked about the clock rule. 18 minutes of possession time for Western Carolina, and they put up 52 points, and they ran 48 plays. They had almost as many plays as they did points on Saturday.
I mean, total 5. I mean, okay, they gave up 500, but they put up 500 yards. I mean, you're talking about a ball game that had over 1,000 yards of offense. Again, the defense, as we talked about, they just got to do just enough. And like you just said there, they did just enough. I just think, the thing that they've got to clean up, the penalties, of course, kind of took back some first downs early on in the game for them. But when you got a guy and then you've got a team believing in what you got going on, that's a tough out any way you look at it. Tough out.
I know it was in a loss. And we're going to get into your wide receiver of the week here in a second. But Javin Watley had a ridiculous game this weekend. 11 catches for 231 and 4 touchdowns. The kid was on guard. I mean, the announcers, coach, I don't know if you had a chance to go back and watch the live broadcast of the game. He caught that last touchdown, and the announcers said the wrong name, and they were like, "No, somehow it's still Javin Watley catching touchdowns." Like the rest, even the announcers were like, "There's no way they let this kid catch another one." He was unguardable, man. So shout out to him. And Chase Chase played a hell of a game at quarterback. I think, as much as Western Carolina is good, I think Chattanooga still belongs in the top 25 with how they played. That offense played really well. And when Coach, I went back and watched some film from their week 1 loss to North Alabama. The evolution of this team from that North Alabama loss to this weekend, they look like night and day difference, man. So shout out to that staff and this team for just getting better each and every week. And I think if Chattanooga can string some wins together, they're back in the at-large conversation where really and truly I kind of counted them out after that week 1 loss. I didn't think they were going to be able to string enough good wins together, but they've really turned things around.
And you said that after that they've got to find a way to get those guys going in the pass game. I'll tip my hat to you because you call that. And it's going to be interesting to see going forward, how do they continue with that, or do they go back to where they were that week, where they were trying to be balanced? Hey, man, if passing is your way, the heck, if you throw it 70 times and you run it once and you win, the heck with balance. I just keep screaming that. You've got to do what works for you. And I think that's one of those things that they've got to figure out going forward. What's going to work best for us to give us the best opportunity.
Coach, we'll end it here, but I was just doing some research. Listen, I know I'm weird. If this is going to sound crazy, I know. Next year, September 20-something, so I think that's week 3 or week 4, Western Carolina travels to Montana.
Man, I hope they keep this team intact.
Oh, my God. Listen, Montana
what time of year?
September like 21st.
So early. Okay.
Early. Listen, Alcorn State athletic director, we need a bye week that weekend so me and Coach can fly up to Montana, but we'll leave that there. I'll say this. If Cole Gonzalez, Desmond Reed, Sinceri comes back, so Antoine Williams, some of these defenders, I know Big Sky fans are going to try to crucify me on this. That's a winnable game for Western Carolina.
Ain't no doubt. Because that program has proven that they're not scared to go on the road. And It's not going to be too big for them. I don't think Coach Bell would let that happen. And nobody's looking forward. Everybody's playing week by week. But that's known. They know this is coming, even though it's a season ahead, but they know. But if they keep everybody here and intact, that's going to be a good one. I mean, a real good one.
Coach, listen to this out of conference schedule. This is okay. I'm not going to call any teams out. This is what I'm talking about when a team is not scared about competition. They open up the season at NC State, Power 5 road game. Then the next week they host Campbell. Then the next week they travel to Elon. And then the next week they travel to Montana.
Let's see what we got early.
Ooh.
I guess that's the mindset. Let's see what we got early. But we said this team is a year ahead, really a year ahead of schedule. And I guess technically looking at it, that would be the year where I think Coach might have said that, we're here. Let's see if we're really for real about it. Not knowing that this year was going to be all to the start that they are right now.
That's the one thing we talked last week about, that transfer portal. It could come real quick on some teams. So,
man,
but Coach, man, I was going to start the show with this, but we kind of shifted around the lineup before we get into these last, I think 2-3 games. Coach, your wide receiver of the week, man, the fly zone wide receiver of the week, man. Who you got for week 6?
You just gave the honorable mention, right? To have those
Watley.
numbers, to have those numbers and still be honorable mention, I feel like we still need to reach out and send him something. But normally, I don't call names on this show, but I got to call a name on this one here just because of what he did. And if you object, just tell me you object. But, fly zone receiver of the week goes to Mr. Ty James.
That's a bad man.
285, 2 touchdowns. The 2 touchdowns put him like somewhere crazy, like 100 yards, almost like 50-yarder, 30-yarder, ridiculous. Average is almost like 20 yards a catch. And we've been talking about this for some weeks about what they want to do offensively and getting the ball to. This is why you got to find a way to get the ball to this guy. Mr. James, if anybody's listening, we're going to find a way to get you those. I'm on the road, so I don't have them, but we got the Scary Hour gloves. We're trying to find some more stuff to put in the swag box with the award. But Ty James, Mr. Ty James is the guy this week. Fly zone. 285. He almost went for 3 football fields in the pass game.
He's a problem.
And he's an underclassman.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the crazy part, Coach, he had 14 receptions this weekend, 18 in the first 5 games. Get him the ball.
Let's make a conscious decision.
Just give him the ball. I mean, Coach, let me pull this up. Hang on, because I want to make sure I say this right. So last year, he had a game. He's set the school record like 4 different times over his career at Mercer.
For receptions.
Yeah. No, and yards too. He had 13 for 351 and 2 touchdowns last year against Sanford. I mean, what do you do with that? He had 5 for 192 and 3 touchdowns in a game last year. And then as in 2021, he set the school record with 8 receptions against ETSU, had 224 and 2 touchdowns in that game as well. I mean, the kid does it. Listen, luckily, I know Ty. So listen, we'll get him his stuff. I think 2 other honorable mentions because I kind of paid attention to see. I was trying to predict who you're going to pick, and I got it right. But a shout out also to Miles Butler for Central Arkansas. Had a huge game, 7 for 117, 2 touchdowns.
Did some stuff late.
Win.
Yeah, did some stuff late in the comeback. Again, 1A, 1B, 1C. Yep. But again, Ty was the guy because he almost, I mean, you're talking about 3 football fields, and we're not talking about just bombs away. We're talking about, 10-yard curl, 10 to 12-yard curl, face up, and I'll see you later. That type of thing. But yeah, those 3 guys did work this week. And then, I wanted to give my guy, Malik Rogers, my guy, a honorable mention, but I was afraid to mention his numbers when I saw what Ty did. I actually had to get somebody to double check to make sure I saw it right. Like, is this a misprint? Did he go for 285? Like, Trayley Moses. Let's make a conscious effort of finding a way to get this guy the ball. And he's an underclassman. That's the thing that's actually scary. And then you just read off those numbers. I think he really likes going against ETSU because he's put up some big games versus them, even as a youngster. So,
man, shout out to Todman. That's my guy. I had one of the best interviews with him this offseason. Coach, also one last honorable mention, a guy who I didn't see this game. I went back and watched the film because right before the show, because I didn't know about this kid from Maine, Joe Gillette. 8 receptions, 169 and 3 touchdowns this week against Richmond.
He slipped
another baller. Yeah, another baller. I still give it to Ty just because Ty did it in a multitude of ways. But then Joe Gillette, I couldn't end the show without giving Gillette a shout out. Man, and Coach, that's 5 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks for Gillette.
That's doing numbers, man. And again, that's one of those deals of where you've got to find why it's hot. You've got to find ways to get the ball to these guys, move them around, do some different things. Just, raise up, throw it to them. If you want to play 10 yards off, just raise up, throw it to them. Let's put these guys in the fly zone, man. Let's get it.
Man, I'm glad Ty won it because you've watched the show even before me and you started, going live together. I've been on Ty James since probably 2 years ago. That kid's an NFL wide receiver. I know people are like, it's the FCS. What would he do? That kid could start for any school in the country. I don't care. I will say this. Listen, Hayden Hatton's a dog. There's some really great wide receivers. I think in terms of an overall wide receiver prospect, Ty James is the best wide receiver in the FCS. And that's no disrespect to anyone else, but Ty James there's something about his film that, every game he just pops off film. And if he was on a team that consistently threw the football, man, it would be scary hour anytime 13 was even in range of the football. So I wanted to end it there because I wanted to give him his flowers. But Coach, we had an upset neither of us saw coming. We didn't even preview this game. Youngstown State beats number 6 Southern Illinois 31-3. Man, Coach, this game was never close. It was never competitive. Coach, I want to read off some defensive statistics to you. Youngstown State held Southern Illinois to 94 passing yards, 6 rushing yards on 23 attempts, 0.3 yards per carry, had 7 sacks on the day, and for the whole game allowed 8 total first downs and 100 total yards and held the offense to 2 yards per play for the entire game.
And we're talking about a team that had been hot when you're talking about the Salukis. And like you said, this kind of came out of nowhere. And the defensive numbers you just read off, I don't know what you do with that going forward. If from Southern Illinois standpoint, I mean, 100 yards of total offense, that's less than impressive as far as in a quarter in this day and age in football. You expect that in a quarter, but you're talking about 4 quarters, and it wasn't like you were just out there turning it over. They had 1 turnover, but the impressive part about it was that Youngstown State defensively just came to eat, and offensively it was on cruise control. They really didn't have to do a lot, but anytime you hold a team at 100 yards and 94 of that 100 was passing, I mean, come on. That's doing something.
Coach, in the second half, their first drive of the second half, they got the kick, they got the ball to start the second half. They went 4 plays, 15 yards on that one. Listen to the rest of their drives in the second half. They had the 1 play for 0 yards because they had the pick. They had 3 plays for -7 yards the next drive, 4 plays for 1 yard the next drive, and ended on a turnover on downs. Had a four plays for 3 yards to start the fourth quarter, 3 plays for -2 yards the next drive, and to end the game, they went 3 plays for -2 yards.
Was it raining?
No, it wasn't. It was beautiful weather. I mean, Coach, this was the Youngstown State team that lost a tough game to Northern Iowa last weekend, 44-41, I want to say. They had no momentum coming into this game, and the defense just went berserk. And then on the flip side too, Tyshawn King, Dre Rushton, I mean, both had big explosive games. I mean, Tyshawn King went 117, 2 touchdowns, averaged over 5 yards per carry. Bryce Oliver is another wide receiver I really like, went 5 for 76. But when your defense puts up those type of numbers, I mean, there's nothing you can do. I want to say there were 8 or 9 players, Coach, that recorded at least a tackle for loss, and I want to say 7 different players at least half a sack.
Oh man, they had Bobby Boucher out there, huh?
I mean,
tough,
Coach, and Timothy, listen, you're an offensive coach. Timothy had a good question. What does that offensive meeting look like on Monday after a performance like this offensively?
Hey, never mind Monday. What does that coaches meeting look like on Sunday? I don't even want to go in there. You know what I mean? And then you're talking about you got to watch that all over again. Like, oh my goodness. I was just there a couple hours ago. I don't need to watch it again. But then you got to explain that to coach. And then, Monday, that meeting, you've got to do a whole 360. You got to decide what we're going to show and what we're not going to show, because you can't show the whole thing. You've got to pick the good and you got to roll with it. If it's only 5 plays, you got to pick those 5 plays and you got to harp on what was good in those 5 plays, because you can't show that. You had less than 10 yards rushing, and you were a ranked team. So you got to figure it out really quick, because you got to get those guys back. Got to get your guys back.
They were a top 6 team, Coach. I mean, they were top 5. I mean, I had them 4th in the country, because, I mean, they had an FBS win. They had an impressive rank. I mean, this team was rolling. I mean, they were rolling. A big win over SEMO, and Youngstown State, coming off a loss, shocked the world like that. And then, Coach, Youngstown has to travel to South Dakota, who's another top 10 team this weekend. I mean, you're looking, if the defense can play like that, you got a shot to beat anybody. But Coach, the big thing I want to look at is, how do they build on this momentum? Because you were probably inspired playing at home after a tough loss. You probably should have won that UNI game. Can you continue to build on that momentum against the South Dakota State team that's rolling? 2 weeks ago, they dominated North Dakota State on the road in the Fargo Dome. That's a matchup that I think, I'll put it like this. That's a contender versus pretender matchup, in my opinion. If Youngstown comes out and wins that game on the road, we got to start looking at Youngstown like maybe that UNI game was just one they let slip away. This is a real contender. Or if South Dakota goes out there and really puts on a show at home, it looks like South Dakota is a real contender, not just in the MVFC, but to make a playoff run this year.
That, and then if South Dakota comes out and like you said, puts on a show, what does that mean now for Southern Illinois going forward with playoff, implications and things like that? How does that make them look? And, for the Youngstown side of it, you got to play the audio in that football facility all week. And you've got to have that thing blaring to the point to where all your kids are thinking about is the dominance that you just, displayed last week, because you're going to need that same effort going up there even to make it, close. Now, can they do it? No doubt. But you're talking about a totally different animal now. And they are going to be on high alert because they saw what you just did. They're breaking that thing down and they're preaching, this can't be us. So it's going to be doubly tough for them. But, if I'm them, we're playing that audio all through the facility, in the weight room, it's on loop. That game audio is on loop.
Man, and then the last two games we'll talk quickly about, Coach. One, we both predicted this. You had Montana by 18. They didn't necessarily cover that, but a huge ranked win on the road for Montana. We both picked the Grizz to win this one. Clifton McDowell, transfer from Central Arkansas, was once committed to Southern, came up to Montana, was really established as a starting quarterback now. 18 for 32, 3 touchdowns, 243, 50 yards on the ground. A big day for him. Eli Gilman, I'll say this, my pick right now for the Jerry Rice Award at running back, 86 yards a touchdown, averaged 11 yards per carry. Coach, was this Montana finally coming into its own, or do they take advantage of a UC Davis team still missing their best player in Larison?
I think it's Montana coming into their own because, we kind of spoke about this off camera last time. They've got to start putting some stuff together or it's going to slip away from them. And, with the schedule that they have coming down the pike, they, I think, realize that they have to come out and put their best foot forward. Now, playing a team, missing their best player didn't hurt. But I think, I would say 80% of this is them realizing that, we got to put the metal to the pedal, and we've got to go from here on out. We can't let anything slip away. So I think they just kind of bear down and, show that they are who they said they were in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So can I take like a 75-25 approach? Like, I think it's a little bit like UC Davis is not the same team without Larison. Let's just put that
most definitely
out there. I mean, their leading rusher, Jordan Fisher, 57 yards, and they average about 3 yards per carry. Larison is a game changer at running back, but I do think it's promising that the offense continues to take steps forward for Montana. And this was a big one, Coach, because Montana on the road this weekend against Idaho over there in the Kibbe Dome. That's going to be, listen, you better be ready because that boy Giovanni McCoy is coming, Hayden Hatton, that defense is rolling. That's a test. So I'll say this. I think Montana proved that they're definitely a top 25 team. I think we can cut that argument out. They're definitely a top 25 team. But this weekend against Idaho is a better test if they're a true national championship contender, is how I'll put it. I think they prove that they're top 25, but can this team compete for a title? I'm with you. Probably not right now because I think Idaho is going to win that game for sure. But Montana needed this one, Coach. This was one of those games when you look ahead, you still got Idaho on the schedule. You still definitely got that Montana State game at the end of the year. There's a lot of tough tests coming. You needed this win to at least solidify your playoff resume, get that ranked win on your resume, and show that, yeah, we might not win it all this year, but we should still be invited to the dance.
Because if they lose this one and you get ready to go to Idaho,
oh man,
it could have gotten really, really ugly and been over with. Winning this one and now getting yourself in position. Now you can't go to Idaho and get boat raced, but
oh yeah, that's true.
At the end of the day, if you lose this UC game, I don't think player-wise, locker room-wise, I don't think they go to Idaho. They go, but I don't think they show up to Idaho because at that point it's pretty much, what are we playing for at this point? So, this game is going to be interesting because they've got to show that this wasn't, like you said, a win because the team was missing their best player. Now you're facing a team that's got all their bullets and they are ready to go. I think they're a top 2 team in the country. Others don't think that, but at the end of the day, you've got a guy that's got his team behind him and playing really well. So this is going to be a good test for them. And I guess we'll talk about this one here later in the week. So we'll leave it at that right now. You know, I get
Definitely,
off subject sometimes.
definitely on Thursday. I think that's probably going to be the game of the week. I'll say, but and coach, that game you're on a bye week, so it'll be kind of nice for you to kind of sit down and be able to watch
Yes.
ESPN2. They flex that game to ESPN2, but it's a
Good move.
9:30 Central Time kickoff. I want to say so a super late kickoff. I want to say it's 7:30 Pacific Time, which is cool. But I'm really interested to see
I'm
that.
with
I
it.
think that yeah, the defense for Montana, I think, is still they allowed a lot of yards, but I still think it's taken a step forward. To my main concern, and we'll leave it here, offensive line. They have been atrocious in terms of protecting the quarterback. Gave up another 2 sacks this weekend. They can run the football, or they've shown the ability to. Let me say that they haven't always been efficient with it, but they've shown the ability to. They just got to find a way to protect the quarterback. When you have quarterback uncertainty, coach, and you can't protect them, recipe for disaster. I think that's my concern with Montana. But coach, shifting to our final game breakdown before we get into winners and losers. FAMU escapes Baton Rouge. Really, man, coach, this was a hell of a game, by the way, too. I know me and you both thought that it probably wasn't going to be close, but they made it close, 26-19. Coach, I want to start here, though. The big storyline. Did you have a chance to kind of see some of the takeaways from the press conferences today?
Not the press conferences, but I did get a chance to catch like the second half of this game after our game in the tailgate lot. Some people had it on, so I was able to sit there and I got a chance to watch. But yeah, fill me in on the press conference because I've been looking in between schools on Twitter and everything, and everybody's talking about how crazy it was. So I didn't know exactly what happened, but yeah, fill us in.
Real quick, try again. Coach was saying Idaho's a top 2 team, not Montana, not Montana. It was
No, no, no,
Idaho.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, it
Idaho.
was Idaho. Listen, my guy, Miss former Sir Retro, Mister Bafoudy himself. It's hilarious that that's his name. My God, from Jackson. You do not technically have to be in the top 25 to make the playoffs, because sometimes you'll have some teams like North Carolina Central FAMU ranked. If they make the Celebration Bowl, obviously you just can't take the top, teams there. So it's not necessarily got to be in the top 25. Like, you definitely probably need to be having votes, but it's not like we're just going to take the top 25 team and put them in the playoffs. But coach, they turned the lights off in the stadium. But I
I
want to say
saw
ahead of
that.
the fourth quarter, the
Yeah.
teams met at the hashes and they asked Willie Simmons about that moment, coach. And he said that it was terrifying. He was terrified. No one kind of knew what was going on. Some of the people were like, that seems real dangerous. The teams were kind of amped up at midfield. Do you like the idea of turning all the lights off and meeting at the hashes? Or as a coach, look with your coach's hat on, you'll live without that?
We can live without that, especially not knowing. Yeah, we can live without that one because it's hard enough in those type of games to keep everything under wraps. You know what I mean? Tightly contested ball game at that point. We talking about a rival. We talking about one team that's fighting for it. We talking about another team that's kind of on top, but kind of a little slide. So emotions are going to be running high, and you can't spring that on me out the blue. Like, I need to know so that at the end of the third, I can bring my guys over and keep them while whatever it is you're doing over there. I can keep them right there and do our little talk. Hey, finish the game. All that kind of stuff. You can't just spring that on me. You can't just spring that on me.
Yeah,
But that's
as a
crazy
coach.
both ways, though.
Yeah, as a coach, okay, the fan atmosphere doing that, like, I get that. Like, it's for the fans, it's probably an amazing environment, gets the crowd hyped. You want to get them ready for the fourth quarter, that's fine. But yeah, like, I think as a coach, ooh, God, that would be so stressful.
And
That
then
would be. Yeah, I feel you. And people are so out of pocket too with it. It was like it's cool. You just can't do it in Baton Rouge. Like they're like that stadium you can't do it in, because I mean, but
oh man.
as a fan, looking at it from a fan perspective, man, awesome. Like, I think that's so. I mean, the fans were into it. It probably hyped up the crowd, made the atmosphere even better, and that's what makes college football better. Coaches, the things around the atmosphere of the game is so
Right.
different in college football compared to NFL. But yeah, like you said, it just warned me so we can have a team meeting on the sideline and they can do their thing at the hashes, but we're going to go ahead and get ready for the next play because it could have turned real quick if something would have popped off at midfield, and then you got players getting penalties and ejected. Yeah, I think I got to give the coaches props, the coaches and the refs props that they did keep the team separated. I think that was good. But yeah, you got to at least now coaches kind of know what did they do it in the Jackson game? Because I don't remember that. It feels weird that they did it just for this game. Like maybe if it's moving forward, just give the other coaches a heads up. But yeah, Willie was like, we weren't expecting it. It was terrifying. We didn't know what was going on, how soon they were coming back on. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that in the Jackson game, and I went back and actually watched that on the replay. So I don't remember seeing that actually happen. But yeah, you got to know who you're doing that against.
Yeah, because FAMU was there on the hashes ready. Okay, so apparently they did do that during the Jack. Someone said no and someone said yes. So maybe it might not have been, I guess, as publicized, or maybe they didn't meet at the hashes. But in a competitive game, and that's what happens. But let's talk about this game, Coach Musa. Coach, let me start here. I know that you can't just watch the box score, but I watched this game live, and I know we made some mistakes. Maybe not have been as efficient as you needed to be, 31 to 53. But I've never seen a quarterback consistently play pretty well, finish with 325, including a big touchdown toward the end of the game. He missed a handful of the throws, but I've never seen a more criticized quarterback ever, man. It seems like everything this kid does is just blown out of proportion. I mean, Coach, I'm taking my quarterback throwing for 325, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers every day of the week.
And twice on Sunday, and we won. So I think we talked about it before. I don't know where it's coming from or why. The game that it started, I mean, they won 31-7. And he still, threw for, a handful of yards. Again, he was efficient. Did he hit everything he threw? No, but nobody does. I get it. The expectation is what the expectation is. But, I mean, as fans of the game, as fans of the school, you got to understand that every Saturday FAMU plays. Guess what the other team is trying to do? They're trying to win. Winning's hard. Nobody's going to lay down for them. And especially on that side of the division, everybody's gunning because they feel like, hey, it's blood in the water. So, everybody feels like they're going to be able to catch them. There's other teams that are hoping they get caught. So, for that kid to handle the pressure, throw the ball as many times as he did without a turnover, and win the ball game, I don't know what else you want.
And I want to say Jordan's in the chat. I know he's my FAMU aficionado watching. I mean, he goes back and studies FAMU. I want to say there was probably 5 to 8 drops, Coach. On top of that, maybe even more. I mean, the wide receivers, listen, Marcus Riley, Kamari Young had a big game. Jamari Gassett had a big touchdown. But overall, man, they were dropping a lot of easy passes. And as a quarterback, that's got to mess with you a little bit because, Coach, you're a wide receivers coach. I know you talk to your guys. They got to earn the trust of the guy throwing the football. Like, if you want to be the go-to guy, you and that quarterback have to be on the same page. He has to know he can trust you every down. When he's in trouble, I need to look for this guy, this number. Where is he at? If you consistently dropping the football, man, it's really hard to establish a guy that you can trust to go to in those crucial moments.
Yeah, because you just hit it on the head. He wants to know on 3rd and 12 that you're going to be at least 13, 14 yards where you're supposed to be, and you're going to catch it. He wants to know that if he gets moved out of the pocket, that he's going to be able to find you, and you're going to help keep the drive going. And for that kid to stay as poised as he did in the second half, I know he's got to have that in the back of his head. He's on social media. He hears all the talk, but for him to stay as poised as he did, to hit the essentially the game winner, and never flinch, I don't know what else they want from the kid. I really don't.
I mean, I get it, wanting him to be a little bit more efficient. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with you criticizing that. But I mean, I just feel like the narrative kind of surrounding him is that he's And I talked before, listen, I don't think he's perfect. I still give the edge to Davius if these teams match up in the Celebration Bowl. But man, there's a lot when you look around the SWAC, man. Look around college football. You got it better off than a lot of people do right now. I mean, take away some of the elite quarterback play, but you're in the driver's seat. Just picked up a big conference win on the road in Baton Rouge, which is a tough place to play.
Yeah, on the road.
Man, it's like, oh, I just feel like there's a
you gotta
lack
celebrate
of
it, man. You gotta celebrate it. Because like you said,
I don't know.
It could be a different guy back there.
I don't understand why he's getting the criticism and not the rushing attack. The rushing attack has been horrendous since almost a Jackson game. I want to say,
since then, and which in turn puts more pressure on him to be as good as he's been. He could have folded. What was that, 2 games ago? I think they rushed for under 50 yards. So Alabama State game, it fell all on him and the defense. So it's a thing of where it's hard to win on Saturdays, man. It really is. And when you have a guy back there controlling the signals, taking the snaps that's putting you in position to win every Saturday, you need to celebrate it. Trust me, you need to celebrate it.
Because I'm looking here. Terrell Jennings had that one explosive run for 21 yards, but if you take that away, they've ran for less than 50 yards again, Coach. They only averaged 2.9 yards per carry, and at the end of the day, like they ran the ball 23 times for 67 yards, had that big explosive run. That's not going to get it done, and so I get everyone is criticizing like, and why is Musa throwing it 50 times? Well, if your running backs aren't doing what they're supposed to, it's hard not to. You talked about earlier. If you're throwing the ball better than you're running it, keep throwing the football. If you're running the ball better than you're throwing, this isn't rocket science. Like whatever you're doing well in the game, just stick with it.
Make it happen. Whatever's going to get you to the finish line. And right now, that's all they need. If it's 2-0, and he goes 1 of 45. If it's 2-0 in your favor, you take it and run with it. We'll fix that later. But we're still in the driver's seat. Would you rather him go 28 of 30, 500 yards in a loss? Is that what you rather that? Or you rather him go 31, 53, 225, 2 touchdowns and a win? You tell me.
I'll take whatever the win comes with, but I will say this. They're in full control right now. Coach, we talked about this. PV at home for homecoming is going to be a tough one. PV is probably the best team left, unless I'm forgetting someone. I think they're the best team left that they face in the regular season.
Rivalry game.
Yeah. The Bethune game. Yeah, the Bethune game is a rivalry game, but I'll be honest. I don't see how they lose 2 games on the schedule unless barring a significant injury, which I hope doesn't happen, barring a huge let up or someone getting really hot. You got past Alabama State, you got past Jackson, you get past Southern on the road, probably your 3 toughest games. I'm sorry. I know it's a rivalry game. I don't see Bethune catching you. Valley's not catching you. Or you already got past Valley, my bad, as well. So that's a trap game on the road. We talked about that. They got past that one. So who's catching them? Alabama A&M on the road? I don't see that either. Alabama. No offense to Alabama A&M fans, that's not an environment that scares me to go play in. That's not. That's not the Hole. That's not Lorman. That's not the Vet. That's not Baton Rouge at night. Like to me, they've already got past their toughest games away from home. So I don't see them losing twice. And even if they lose to A&M, I would have a hard time finding a second team they lose to. So I think FAMU's kind of got that locked up. Now on the other side, Coach, you guys got pure chaos. We got PV with a half game lead because they've played an extra conference game, and then you guys, Southern and Grambling, all tied at 2-1, and most of y'all have to play each other still. Just pure chaos on the. Listen, we won't find out who wins the West till like the last week of the season, if that.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no kidding. Look, man, Coach, shifting to our last topic here, man. Biggest winners and losers from week 6, man. I'll let you take it away.
Biggest winner, Alcorn State, man. We needed that in the worst way. No one believed that, we could pull that off. Grambling was averaging 35 a game. So I'm going to keep that one home in our conference. The other one in our conference, I got to go Southern. because you were at home.
Yep.
You were, feeling the momentum, so to speak. I think you had to have that one. So our conference, we're the biggest winner. I'd say Southern would be the biggest loser because you had an opportunity to pull that off versus FAM. You're at home. You had the opportunity to pull that one off. And then the other one, like you talked about earlier, we didn't talk about it, but Youngstown State, that had to be a big boost, morale booster for that program, and to do it in that fashion, to dominate. I didn't know the defensive stats like you said, but that you read off, but to do it in a 31-3 fashion and to hold a team, a Division I team, to 100 yards. And you were supposed to be on the downside of that thing. That's impressive. Very impressive. And then the biggest loser, goes to a what we thought was a red hot Saluki team. Honorable mention winner, UCA, man. Those guys are starting to heat up.
How about that comeback? 32 fourth quarter points, Coach. I mean, what? They were down 30-6 going into the fourth quarter, and McIlvain goes 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to win that game. The defense plays outstanding in the fourth quarter, man. Shout out to Central Arkansas. I'll give them an honorable mention. Nick's out here calling out my biggest winner already. He says I don't talk about Tennessee State anymore. Well, they were one of my winners, Coach. A big road win over Kennesaw State. And you're looking, we talked beforehand, you can only lose 2 games with the schedule that they had. They lost to Notre Dame. They lost to UT Martin. You beat a Kennesaw team who has more scholarships than you. Now, Kennesaw's not very good. I'm not going to say that, but that's still a game that Tennessee State would not have won, I think, in the past 2 years. They get it done. A huge defensive performance. Draylon Ellis is really clicking now as starting quarterback. I think he's starting to find that confidence that he had at Austin Peay, and the defense is playing just a lights out. And Eddie George is starting to sound more and more confident the more you hear him talk to the media. He knows what he has cooking up there in Nashville. If they can get past Norfolk this week, I think Norfolk's an interesting game. It's homecoming. Norfolk has looked good in certain games. Yeah. You look at that road matchup with Eastern Illinois, who was receiving some top 25 votes, played UT Martin really well, came down to overtime, 28-27. There's a chance Tennessee State wins out, Coach. And if they're sitting at 9-2, even with that Lincoln game on their schedule, I don't see how you keep a 9-2 Tennessee State team out with a road loss to UT Martin by 10 points and a Notre Dame loss week 1. To me, that team deserves to be in the conversation for an at-large bid.
Yeah, and they are right there with the Western Carolina as far as, are people really paying attention to them, or are they just, on paper? Because like you said, in the game, they actually had a chance to win that game, and probably should have won the game. Not the Notre Dame game, but the UT. They had an opportunity and should have won that game. So, hopefully them and Western start to get the eye test to where people go back and kind of watch to see what the product looked like, not just on paper, and think about them in the past tense. Actually go watch them. And I think they will, if they do it right, like you said on the schedule, I think you can't deny them. I don't know how you deny them.
Because if UT Martin keeps winning, because there's a chance UT Martin could finish 11-1.
Yep.
I mean, or not 10-1, maybe
10-1,
10-1, 9-2. That's a solid. Record. That's a quality loss. I mean, Notre Dame are they still top 25? I know Louisville smacked them around this weekend, but anyway, Tennessee State's a winner. Montana's a big winner. The most criticized team in FCS football this year. I mean, they've just been catching strays left and right. It was a big ranked win on the road despite Larison's injury. If the offense continues to evolve, man, Montana's going to have a chance with some of these big games on their schedule. I think the biggest loser, man, Southern Illinois took a big one. I mean, that's just, you were rolling. Probably we're going to be solidified for a seed if you kept moving in the direction you were. The way you lost that is just, it's got to be tough. I'm interested to see how they bounce back. They have a few tough games left on that schedule. So I'll go Southern Illinois. In terms of SWAC, it's hard because Southern's still in the race. I think it's got to be A&M. Alabama A&M. You've had a chance to kind of keep yourself in the running for the SWAC East. Now, with that loss to Southern, and you got the loss to FAMU, you're pretty much FAM's not losing 3 times. Jackson's probably not losing another 2. So I think you're out of the race completely. That was a big loss for Connell Maynard. And now you're looking, Coach, with how I know you can't say nothing because you're in the coaching community, with how Alabama State's trending, with how A&M's trending. The Magic City Classic could be who is still employed come the end of the season, because there's a lot of chatter around
both of those programs.
Both programs. And I will say this, there's been a lot of chatter. I can't believe it's happening. Eric Dooley might be a biggest loser for me, because I have heard that the money has been raised for the buyout. And it might be listen, the way it was put in our chat was, it's championship or bust. And it's looking a lot like a bust right now.
And then, that goes back to, like, one of your pet peeves. You don't need to play the in-conference game that doesn't count. You don't need that, because that loss to Alabama State is looking worse and worse, even though it didn't count. It didn't hurt you, but the way it looks, and then you continue to have those same type of losses. I just, I'm personally, I wouldn't do that, and this is why. This is exactly why.
Oh, man, the coach, I don't know how you do it. The stress I would be under as a coach. I mean, this guy, I want to put it in perspective, because I get why he's on the hot seat. Coach, this guy just won his division less than 12 months ago, and they're ready to ship him out, and he's still tied for the lead in his division this season.
It's a funny business, man. It really is. It's
oh my God.
It's kind of I don't know. It's kind of like they say that, I don't know, because I've never done drugs, but it's kind of like they say drugs are, once you do it once, you're hooked. So I think it's one of those deals of where fan bases can be really, really, really over the top with it, man, with expectations, and it's hard to win week to week, bro. And that's why I got my celebration glasses on. That's why I don't care if I have to go get a chili steak and order 2 of them to make it that freaking big. That's why I'm going to do what I'm about to go do, and have a couple glasses of red wine, because I didn't celebrate, like I said, after the game, knowing I had an early flight the next day. But you celebrate wins, man, and this is why, because we lose that game to Grambling, I'm sure we're raising money to get Fred out of here, that kind of thing. So it's a different business, man, and you either love it or you hate it.
I mean, take the name and the school off. If I said ex-coach coaching at Bluebloods University, just won the division, was in the SWAC championship, is tied for the division lead right now, but they're ready to get him out of there. I mean, because of that, I'll say this: my biggest winner, and we'll end this, Chennis Berry.
Oh, he's killing.
Listen, this ain't a D2 show, but from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of blank checks that are going to be starting to be sent to that Benedict coaching office. There are a few schools. Oh man, Chennis Berry, with the way that that team coach going into this weekend, they were allowing 2 points per game in the first 5 games. I mean, they got 2 guys that have almost 20 tackles for loss, and it's not even mid-October yet.
And he's another guy that's ahead of schedule when you go back and look at what the program was when he took it over. Like you said, we're not a D2 show, but go back and look at what he took over, and where they are today. He's definitely ahead of schedule, and there's been some people, I'm sure, that have already reached out to some other people at some schools. If X, Y, and Z happens, are we going to make a play for this guy right here? That kind of thing. Ain't no doubt about that.
Shout out to Dr. Cavill for tuning in. An absolute legend in the HBCU space, man. Appreciate you tuning in, Doc. He said it's crazy to think that's the case for Dooley right now. And I mean, let's not be honest. I mean, I thought it was kind of a rebuild at Alabama State. For E-Rob to potentially be on the hot seat is crazy. It's crazy in my mind too. But listen, it's the new world of college football, Coach. You know this. in the age of the transfer portal,
what have you done for me lately?
You got 2 years. If you're not winning in 2 years, you are out of here. I don't know what that was.
I said, what was that for?
I don't know. Time out. I don't know who hit the balloons on that one, but I don't know what that was. But Coach, I'm gonna let you go get your steak, man. Celebrate a huge win over Grambling. I heard the environment was electric, and I want to shout out you guys.
Absolutely crazy. Before we end it, man, you know I get off subject sometimes, and this could send our friendship one way or another. So I need you to answer this wholeheartedly. I need you to think about it. How is B ordering his steak?
Medium rare for sure.
Okay. I knew it was something about.
I'll say this. I'll say medium rare. Okay, and I'll say this: if I go to a restaurant, because there's, you know how it is, like with the hibachi places, they cook it in front of you. If I know a place overcooks the steak, I'll just order it rare. Because you can always tell them to cook it a little bit more. You can't tell them to cook it again. So I'll say rare to medium rare for me.
I knew it was something about you, man. That's why we formed this. Yeah, that's the only way to do it. The only way to do it. I was nervous about asking the question, but I had to ask you just because.
So Coach's Corner is still on just because of how we cook our steaks. There's a lot of mediums in the chat. I don't mind. Like it's
got to be the right medium though. It's got to be the right medium.
It can't be medium well. Like it can't be medium well in my opinion. Like if it just gets too chewy, man. Like I don't know, and then it gets real dry. Like I mean, I don't know. But also I'll say this because people always get on to me about this. I do not eat steak sauce with my steak because if you cook it right, it shouldn't need sauce.
It doesn't need steak sauce. I knew it was something about you, man.
Thank you. There we go.
I knew it was something about you. That's why we formed this thing, man.
Listen, man, former friendships, one question at a time here on the Coach's Corner, man. But guys, I appreciate all y'all tuning in, man. Hit the like button, subscribe again. Wednesday morning, the launch of FCS Football Central over on Sports Illustrated Fan Nation. It's going to be a big day. We have a lot of content already on the site. I can't wait for it to be published. And me, my guy, Coach Fred, Timothy, some people I'm talking to about joining the team are going to bring y'all the best, most up-to-date FCS HBCU content on the web, man. So I appreciate y'all so much. But guys, for Coach Fred, so I can let him go get his steak up in Kansas for myself, for the Blue Bloods, we are out for right now.